Forget the immense wealth, the sprawling estates, and the Ivy League schools for a moment. The true inheritance of old money children, it's argued, isn't financial, it's character. While much of the world chases fleeting validation on social media, these families often operate from a different playbook, one based on principles passed down through generations. This philosophy doesn't start in a boardroom, but at the breakfast table, with simple, powerful habits that forge discipline. For generations, dynasties like the Vanderbilts, Astors, and the more recent Rockefellers haven't just managed money, they have cultivated mindsets. They have fostered a kind of psychological fortitude in their children, built on the idea that fortune follows character, not the other way around. And the most surprising part? Their methods aren't complex secrets locked away in a vault. They are often daily practices, intentional habits, and quiet philosophies available to anyone. Here, we'll explore 7 core tenets that reflect the old money approach to raising responsible, graceful, and resilient children. These are the unspoken rules that build an internal architecture so strong it doesn't require applause to feel valuable. As we unpack them, you'll discover they have less to do with a bank account and more to do with a shared, generational resolve. If you're interested in the psychology of generational wealth and the timeless principles of a well-lived life, consider subscribing. We explore the habits and philosophies of some of the world's most enduring families. Now let's get into the rules that are said to build unbreakable character. Rule number 1. The sovereignty of structure. The first and most foundational idea in this parenting philosophy is the power of structure. This isn't about a militant, joyless existence. It's about creating a predictable, disciplined rhythm to life that becomes the bedrock upon which a child's character is built. In a world that increasingly prizes spontaneity, the old money ideal doubles down on the power of routine. Why? Because of the belief that discipline creates freedom. Think about the modern parenting landscape. It's often characterized by packed schedules, chaotic mornings, and evenings dominated by screens. There's often a sense of reactive parenting, responding to a child's whims rather than guiding them through an established framework. The traditional approach is the antithesis of this. Structure is presented as non-negotiable and starts at an early age. Meal times are at the same time every day. Bedtime is fixed. Wake-up time is consistent. These are not presented as punishments, but as simple facts of life. This consistency can do something profound for a child's developing brain. It removes the daily battle of wills. When a child knows that dinner is always at 6:30, there is no energy wasted on arguing or testing boundaries. That energy can instead be directed toward conversation and connection. This structured environment teaches a crucial lesson in delayed gratification. Children learn that the world does not revolve around their immediate desires. They learn to wait and to be patient. A child who can sit patiently through a family dinner without interruption is a child who may one day be able to sit through a tedious but necessary board meeting. Consider the historical example of John D. Rockefeller, who raised his children with a surprising degree of structure. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., was given a small allowance and was required to keep a detailed ledger of his expenses. He was rewarded for chores and penalized for being late to meals. This wasn't just about the money. It was about instilling the principle that life operates on a system of cause and effect within a defined structure. The routine of accounting for every penny taught discipline and accountability. In practice, this ideal extends to many parts of the day. Screen time is often limited, not because it's seen as inherently evil, but because it can be an enemy of deep focus and intellectual curiosity. Children are encouraged to entertain themselves with books, imaginative play, or other activities. Chores are not just a way to earn a commission, they are an expected contribution to the household. The psychological impact is immense. This predictable rhythm can create a deep sense of security. Within this safety, children are free to develop their internal world. They learn emotional regulation because their environment is regulated. They learn self-discipline because their lives are disciplined. These families know that a fortune without the character to sustain it may vanish. A popular, though not rigorously verified, estimate suggests that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% by the third. The structure isn't the cage, it's the scaffolding that allows a child to build themselves into a strong, self-reliant adult. Rule number 2. Manners as a moral compass. In many modern circles, etiquette is sometimes seen as a stuffy, outdated set of rules. But in the world of old money, good manners are viewed as a moral compass. The second rule for building character is the ideal that manners are prioritized before milestones. Character and respect for others are often valued more highly than academic achievements or athletic trophies. This philosophy suggests that a person who can navigate any social situation with grace and make others feel respected possesses a form of quiet confidence that money can't buy. This education starts at the very beginning. The dinner table is the primary classroom. From a young age, children are often included in family meals. Here, they learn the micro-rituals of civility. Waiting for everyone to be served before eating, saying please and thank you without being prompted, and not interrupting when others are speaking. These behaviors are not taught as rigid commands, but are modeled consistently by the parents. The ideal is that conversation steers away from gossip and focuses on ideas, current events, art, and history. Children are encouraged to participate, ask thoughtful questions, and listen respectfully.
Beyond the table, manners are woven into the fabric of daily life. Children are taught to look people in the eye when they speak, to give a firm handshake, and to address elders with respect. They learn the art of the thank you note, a small but powerful gesture that acknowledges another person's time and generosity. This practice teaches gratitude and reinforces the idea that one should not take anything for granted. Crucially, this respect is ideally extended to everyone, regardless of their social or economic station. Old money children are taught to treat household staff, service workers, and strangers with the same courtesy they would a visiting dignitary. Any display of arrogance or entitlement would likely be met with swift and serious correction. This is a core tenet of their moral code, the belief that true class is not about showing superiority, but about demonstrating that you see the humanity and dignity in everyone. It's a lesson in humility. This training has a profound psychological effect. It forces a child to look outward and consider the feelings of others, acting as an antidote to the narcissism that wealth can sometimes breed. By constantly practicing empathy and respect in small, everyday interactions, it can become an ingrained part of their character. They learn to read social cues, to de-escalate tension, and to build rapport, skills of emotional intelligence that are incredibly valuable in life. Rule number 3, the currency of discretion. In an age of relentless self-promotion, where success is often measured in likes and followers, the third rule of old money parenting is a radical act of rebellion, the worship of discretion. These families often teach their children that privacy is the ultimate luxury and that silence can be a strategy. Wealth is not something to be flaunted, it is something to be guarded. This philosophy, sometimes called stealth wealth, is not born from shame, but from a calculated multi-generational strategy for preservation and peace. Children are taught that overt displays of wealth, flashy cars, logo-heavy clothing, ostentatious jewelry are unsophisticated. More than a matter of taste, it's a matter of security. Such displays can attract the wrong kind of attention, envy, resentment, and opportunism. Bragging is treated as a cheap currency for the insecure. The greatest flex is feeling so grounded that you never have to prove anything. This lesson starts early. The idealized image is one of practicality and quality. Reliable cars kept for years, a single, well-made watch worn for decades, or timeless furniture that is repaired rather than replaced. The emphasis is on craftsmanship over loud branding. Conversations about money are handled with care. While children are taught financial literacy, they are also taught that it is considered vulgar to discuss wealth or the cost of things in public. If a classmate asks an inappropriate question, the child is coached to politely deflect. This isn't about being secretive for its own sake. It's about establishing boundaries. This culture of discretion is also said to extend to influence. While many old money families like the Rockefellers and Carnegies are famous for their highly public philanthropy, the principle of discretion remains a core value. Giving back is often seen as a duty, not an opportunity to purchase public acclaim. The ideal is that true power lies in the ability to affect change without needing a spotlight for validation. Psychologically, this shapes a child's sense of self-worth in a fundamental way. When their value is not tied to external symbols of wealth, they are encouraged to cultivate an internal identity. Their confidence can then come from their character, knowledge, and abilities, not from the brand they wear. This practice of understatement acts as a form of armor, allowing them to form genuine relationships based on shared values rather than financial status. Rule number 4, education beyond the classroom. While an elite education is often a hallmark of an old money upbringing, the 4th rule reveals a deeper truth. Formal schooling is only one part of a much broader lifelong curriculum. Old money parents often understand that true education is about cultivating intellectual curiosity, critical thinking, and cultural literacy, assets that cannot be conferred by a diploma alone. The process begins at home, which is viewed as the first and most important school. In these households, you'll often find rooms filled with books. Reading isn't presented as a chore, but as a primary form of entertainment. Parents read to their children and are seen reading for their own enjoyment, modeling that a life of the mind is a rewarding one. The curriculum of the home is an immersive education in culture. Weekends might be for trips to museums, art galleries, the symphony, or historical sites. These are not treated as stuffy, obligatory outings. Parents are encouraged to engage their children, asking them what they see in a painting or how the music makes them feel. This builds a vast reservoir of cultural knowledge. Travel is another essential component, but it's often educational and experiential rather than a typical resort vacation. It might involve exploring ancient ruins, practicing a language in a small village, or learning about a different ecosystem. The goal is to broaden the child's perspective, instill a global mindset, and teach them to navigate unfamiliar environments with confidence and respect. This holistic approach to education prioritizes process over outcome. While good grades are expected, the emphasis is less on a perfect GPA and more on developing critical thinking skills. Dinner table debates and discussions about literature or current events are common. Children are taught how to think, not what to think. The psychological impact of this approach is profound. It aims to create individuals who are not merely knowledgeable, but who are lifelong learners. They are curious, adaptable, and intellectually self-sufficient. This intellectual capital is seen as a far more valuable and durable asset than financial capital. Markets can crash and fortunes can be lost, but a well-developed mind and a deep well of knowledge can never be taken away. This is an education not for a career, but for a life of engagement, contribution, and perpetual growth. Rule number 5, financial stewardship, not ownership. Perhaps the most counterintuitive and crucial rule in this parenting philosophy concerns money itself. In families where the wealth is vast, you might expect children to be indulged. The reality is often the exact opposite. The 5th rule is to teach that wealth is not a personal possession, but a generational responsibility. They are not owners, they are stewards.
This is arguably the single most important defense against the entitlement that can erode fortunes over generations. The lesson is drilled in from the beginning. This money is not truly yours. It is the result of the hard work of previous generations, and your duty is to preserve and grow it for future generations. This reframes wealth from a tool for personal gratification into a solemn duty. The education is practical and starts young. Unlike households where money is a taboo topic, these families often discuss it pragmatically. It begins with a structured allowance system, similar to the one John D. Rockefeller Jr. experienced. The allowance is often intentionally small, forcing the child to make real choices and understand the concept of scarcity. They learn the difference between a want and a need. As children get older, the lessons become more complex. A core concept is the difference between capital and cash. They learn that cash is for spending, while capital is for investing. They are taught to view their savings not as a pot of money to be spent later, but as working capital to be deployed. They might be guided to make their first small investments, learning about compound interest over the long term. They also learn to think like owners, not just employees. They may be exposed to the family's businesses or investment strategies from a young age, learning how decisions are made. Most importantly, they are taught to be accountable. Following the Rockefeller model, many families encourage children to keep detailed account books. These are reviewed by the parents, not as an act of control, but as a teaching moment. This simple habit instills a powerful discipline of financial mindfulness. This philosophy of stewardship also dictates their spending habits as adults. They learn to live well below their means. The psychological effect is to create a deep-seated resistance to materialism. When you see wealth as a tool for long-term legacy rather than a means for short-term pleasure, their security comes not from what they can buy, but from the knowledge that the family's foundation is secure. Rule number 6. Service without a spotlight. In a culture that often equates charity with highly publicized galas, the 6th rule of old money parenting offers a powerful counter-narrative. Service is a duty, not an event, and its highest form is often performed without a spotlight. Children are taught that with privilege comes responsibility, and this responsibility extends beyond the family to the wider community. This concept of noblesse oblige, the inferred obligation of the privileged to act with honor and generosity, is a cornerstone of the old money psyche. It is not about writing a check to assuage guilt. It is about active participation in the betterment of society. The goal is to build character through contribution, teaching children that their lives have a purpose larger than their own comfort. The education in service begins early and is deeply practical. It's not uncommon for children to volunteer alongside their parents at a young age. This might involve serving meals at a soup kitchen or helping to clean up a public park. The key is that the work is hands-on. This direct exposure builds empathy and provides a crucial perspective on their own fortunate circumstances. As they grow older, this involvement becomes more sophisticated. They might be invited to sit in on meetings for the family's philanthropic foundation, learning how to vet organizations and make thoughtful decisions about where to allocate resources. A critical element of this ideal is the emphasis on discretion. While families like the Rockefellers and Carnegies are famous for their large-scale public philanthropy, there is a deep-seated belief in the virtue of anonymous giving. They are taught that the purpose of giving is to help the recipient, not to aggrandize the donor. This stands in opposition to the modern trend of virtue signaling, where charitable acts are often broadcast for social credit. Psychologically, this approach cultivates humility, an intrinsic sense of purpose. When a child learns to derive satisfaction from the act of helping itself, rather than from the praise they receive for it, they are developing a powerful internal motivation. Their self-esteem is not dependent on external validation. They learn that true influence is not about being seen, but about making a tangible difference. This ethos was famously articulated by figures like David Rockefeller, who emphasized that his parents taught him that wealth brings with it a profound responsibility to contribute to society. This wasn't just a suggestion, it was framed as a core part of their identity. By teaching service without a spotlight, these parents hoped to build a character that is compassionate, responsible, and humble. Rule number 7. Craft over clout. In our current era of instant gratification, where influencer is a career path, the final rule of old money character building is a quiet revolution, the pursuit of craft over clout. Children are taught to value the slow, patient, and often solitary process of mastering a difficult skill. The goal is not public recognition, but the internal rewards of discipline, perseverance, and excellence. This philosophy stems from an understanding that true self-esteem is forged in effort, not bestowed by applause. While mainstream culture may celebrate the overnight success, the old money ideal reveres the violinist who has practiced for 10,000 hours, the equestrian who rises at dawn to train, or the scholar who spends years mastering a dead language. The journey of mastery builds a resilience and depth of character that fleeting fame never can. The choice of craft is often intentional. These are typically skills that cannot be bought or rushed, like rowing, sailing, playing a classical instrument, or learning a complex art form. These pursuits have several things in common. First, they require immense discipline and routine, reinforcing the first rule, the sovereignty of structure. Second, they provide immediate and honest feedback. The boat will capsize if you don't rig it correctly. The note will be sour if your fingering is wrong. The ocean does not care about your last name. This teaches children to learn from failure and develop a respect for objective standards of excellence. Third, these are often pursuits that can be enjoyed for a lifetime, providing a source of personal fulfillment independent of their career or social standing. This focus on craft creates a powerful psychological armor. A person who has dedicated years to mastering a difficult skill knows their own worth. They have tangible proof of their ability to persevere and focus. They are less susceptible to the allure of shortcuts and less crushed by public criticism because their validation comes from within. Their confidence is real because it has been earned. This contrasts sharply with the pursuit of clout, which is inherently fragile because it depends on the fickle attention of others. The old money parent encourages their child to become a creator, not just a consumer. The ideal is to value a single well-crafted poem that no one ever reads more than 1,000 shallow posts that get 1 million views. This isn't to say they discourage ambition, but they teach that success should be the byproduct of excellence, not the goal itself. So what is the secret code that binds these 7 ideals together? If we synthesize the sovereignty of structure, the morality of manners, the currency of discretion, education beyond the classroom, financial stewardship, service without a spotlight, and the pursuit of craft over clout, a single powerful philosophy emerges. It is the art of postponing short-term gratification for long-term dignity. It's a worldview built on the understanding that the most valuable assets are internal, not external. Unbreakable character is not something you are given, it is something you build, day by day, through disciplined habits and intentional choices. It's an internal architecture forged by routine, polished by respect, protected by privacy, enriched by knowledge, fortified by responsibility, humbled by service, and hardened by effort. The old money playbook is ultimately not about raising wealthy kids. It's about raising kids who would be valuable and resilient even if the wealth were to disappear tomorrow. It's about building a life that doesn't require applause to feel meaningful. It's about understanding that legacy isn't what you leave for your children, but what you leave inside them. The fortune is secondary, the fortitude is everything. Because in the end, trends vanish and markets collapse, but character, true, unbreakable character, is the only inheritance that can echo across generations. These principles, developed over generations, offer a powerful alternative to the chaotic short-term pressures of our modern world. They remind us that the most profound work of any parent can be the slow, patient, and deliberate building of a good human being. What do you think? Which of these rules resonated with you the most, and which do you feel are most needed in the world today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this exploration valuable, be sure to subscribe for more discussions on the psychology of wealth and enduring principles. Thank you for watching.